Hey everybody, it's Zach Clayton with Community Pay It Forward, Community Dare to Care
Well,
in the
good
back channels.
afternoon. And today is Memorial Day 2023. My name is Dennis Schroeder, and I'm at the Nashville National Cemetery. And what we're looking at right now are some of the more recent headstones that are here in the cemetery. This is a very old national cemetery, and there are graves of soldiers from many decades in the past. From my perspective, this is exactly what Memorial Day is all about. It's not the sales, it's not the specials for discounts, it's not the barbecues. It's about remembering people like this gentleman right here in front of me, Nestor Asen Ebion Sr., was in the U.S. Navy in Vietnam, was born in 1941 and died in 2020. It's about remembering his life. It's about Eddie Feiner Sr., who was a Marine Corps corporal in World War II, born in 1925 and died in 2007. And I'm going to set my camera up a little bit differently here in a second, and I'm going to sit down and have a conversation about what my thoughts are about today and about what we hopefully can learn and should be focused on here. So it'll take me just a moment to get my tripod up and everything where I want it to be, but it won't take long.
Hey everybody, you're listening to Mr. Dennis Schroeder.
So
He is doing a live broadcast from Nashville National Cemetery. Memorial Day. This is what Memorial Day is. So Mr. Schroeder decided that he wanted to go out there and share this experience with you. I want to thank him very much for doing it. And you're on the PAC channels. This is what Memorial Day is. I love the way that Dennis was talking about it. This isn't this isn't about the sales. This isn't about all that other stuff.
I'm going to sit here and I'm going to have just a stream of consciousness here. Memorial Day has always been significant to me. It's been significant because my father was in the Navy. I grew up in and around Navy personnel, and with an awareness that anybody who joins the services could be asked to make the ultimate sacrifice. Now, the folks who are buried here, the ones that I just mentioned, these folks survived the conflicts that they were in, and I'm thrilled about that. I'm glad that we have national cemeteries where the people who are buried here are all veterans or casualties of conflicts and their spouses. I think it's worthwhile and just and fitting that these places are set aside and dedicated to those who served. You know, why did I serve? Looking back, I mean, that's a long time ago. I'm almost 67 years old now, and my decision to serve probably went back to when I was a freshman in high school, I think. My father had found out about this after-school program called the U.S. Navy Sea Cadets and told me about it. And I joined, and we wore Navy uniforms. We met once a week. I think it was on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. We met at a U.S. Navy Reserve Center in the port of Tacoma, in Tacoma, Washington. And I learned there, military drill, military discipline. Got to be on the drill team. Made Cadet of the Year before I graduated high school. So this was back from 1970 to 1974, towards the end of the Vietnam era. And if I remember correctly, I just knew that all of the stuff that was being said about Vietnam was twisted. I just had an empathy for the soldiers who were over there, and I just felt that they were not being treated right by our media and by the public. So anyway, I decided I was going to go regardless. My father being a retired enlisted man, and me being the oldest of 7 children, and my parents both putting us all through Catholic schools, I knew that though they wanted to, they weren't going to be in a position to help me financially. So I was blessed that I did well academically, and my father encouraged me to try to become an officer. So I applied for ROTC scholarships, and I was offered both a Navy scholarship and an Army scholarship. The Navy scholarship came with a caveat, however. They said because I had defective color vision that I couldn't be in the blue water Navy that I longed to be in, and I would have to be a Marine. And at that point in time in my life, that was the last thing I wanted. So I joined, I accepted the Army's ROTC scholarship, and got my commission 4 years later, and started my service. So, but every year when Memorial Day comes around, and when I served, we weren't in many shooting wars. Panama, Grenada, those are the only things really that were going on when I served. And even though I was in field units at that time, our division was never called. So I got to sit and watch just about like everybody else did. So in a sense, I guess there's a sense of maybe it's a little bit of survivor guilt that is still going on within me. I'm not really sure. But what I do know for sure is that when Memorial Day comes around, this is what we should be focused on. These men and women who served, who died while serving, who died after serving. And so I just want to put my words out here to say thank you. Thank you to every one of you. Thank you to the families that have suffered a loss. My prayers are with you, and may their memories never fade. And I think that's about all I have to say for the time being. God bless you all, and maybe I'll have some other thoughts to share later on.
You've been listening to Mr. Dennis Schrader from the Price of Freedom Foundation. make sure that you give them a call at 615-389-1867. The Price of Freedom Foundation. This is the founder who was just out there. I think he said some things that were very, very poignant. I think that you also got to witness, right? You can see them in the screen right there, families. That's what this day is about, folks. There are people who are no longer with us because their family, because a family member, their family member is gone. And this is what we are trying to get across today is that, you know, this isn't, well, look, this is a great day to get together because you know what? Not all of us are going to be here for forever. Okay. Life is fleeting. We all know this. But let's remember, please, let's remember what this day is about. Let's remember that this is a day about celebrating those who fought for us, who allowed us to have this life. You know, this is a wonderful thing that Dennis did. He just wanted to go out, and we just wanted to put out something where, you know, he was out there and he was sharing with us real, raw emotions. It really meant a lot, and he wanted to bring it to you guys. He wanted to bring it to you live, and it really did. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little choked up about it. Dennis is back. He's joining us again, and you know, once again, raw emotions. There are people who lost people, fought for this country, who died for this country. Dennis, we noticed that you, right next to you, we had some little kids over there.
Yeah,
A couple family members out there.
There are a smattering of families throughout this cemetery. Sorry, I had a call trying to buzz in there. There's a smattering of families throughout the cemetery. I'm actually located right next to where they have the grave locator. And there's a handful of people that constantly are coming and going so they can find the gravestone of their lost loved one. It kind of reminds me of where my grandfather is buried. My grandfather on my mother's side is buried at the Custer Battlefield National Cemetery. And it's usually several years between my being able to visit his grave because, let's face it, it's a long way between Nashville, Tennessee, and the Custer Battlefield. And so even though I've been to his gravestone probably a half dozen times, I still always have to stop in to the headquarters there and use their locator to find it. But that's where he was buried. He had served in World War I. He was a cook. I never got a chance to talk to him about any of that because he died when I was maybe 10 or 12. And I really, at that time, I don't even know if I was aware at that point in time that he had served back then. But that's where his wife, my grandmother, is also buried with him. And she lived maybe 25 years beyond him. But it's
you know, Dennis, that's kind of one of those things that I remember when I mentioned it this morning that I talked to my grandfather, who was a ground medic in France, and I got to talk to him. And unfortunately, this is one thing that I really want to express to children out there, to kids, to young people, because you know we've got that flight mind. And I always try to tell them, you know, when you're having a conversation with someone who's got a little bit of age behind them, make sure you digest everything that they say, because I didn't take that conversation seriously now that, you know, 40 years later, I wish I would have really taken that conversation more serious, because while there are certain things that have stuck in my head, there were certain things that I don't remember that he said. But I remember watching a man that I respected and loved with all my heart. I remember watching him cry. And then I heard about 20 years ago, my dad telling me that this is his father, my dad telling me he never talked to me about his service. And this is well after we had lost the man.
Right.
And my dad telling me that, he never talked about service with me. And these are some of the things that we need to remember, because, this is a time, this was something special. And
it was probably very significant too. And what I would say for anybody who's listening is that there are some excellent programs out there. If you have a relative who is getting older, who is still with you, the Library of Congress has its Veterans History Project, and I would strongly encourage you to participate in that, because what that will do is it will prompt some questions. It will prompt some conversations. It adds a little bit of, it's more than just curiosity, is what I would say. And maybe that veteran who is being asked to revisit some traumatic times in his life may be a little bit more willing to do so, if it's seen as something that's more than just for him, or for him and you. Even though I would hope that if I were in that position, if I had suffered through some of that trauma and I had a child or a grandchild who came to me and asked if I would talk about that my service and talk about those things, I would hope that I would do that. But I know that not all veterans are going to. So.
One of the things that what you were just talking about, Dennis, I would encourage people to look up and see if there's things like honor flights in your area. This allows your veterans to go back and visit memorials, and they can go and they can find the brothers and sisters that they lost, and they can maybe maybe a little bit of inner peace, maybe just be able to say goodbye. I know that with our Vietnam veterans, I know that my uncle is very sick because of some of the stuff that they did there. He's very ill with cancer. I would do anything to get my uncle to be able to go back and revisit, because he's very proud of his service. And exactly what you said, he's very proud of his service that, as Americans, we were disgraceful at that time. And I can't say a lot. I was 3.
Right.
But you know what? It's kind of one of those things that we still. I went to an opening at the VA, and our representative at the time was going through and talking about all of our heroes through this war. He forgot Vietnam. And I'm going to say this, okay, you know what? Excuse the language here, but shit happens. But let's be honest. Let's not forget Vietnam. If you're going to forget something, forget the French and Indian War, for God's sakes. Nobody's around from that.
Right. Well, the Korean War is also considered the forgotten war too. So, my father was in the Navy for both the Korean War and the Vietnam War, and so I definitely want to include veterans in both of those. And I did want to mention that for anybody who was affected by Agent Orange, there is an organization, a nonprofit, actually here in Tennessee, close by to where I live, called the Orange Heart Memorial or Orange Heart Medal, something along that lines. If you do a Google search for Orange Heart, you'll most likely find that organization. And what they do is they have, just like we have medals and ribbons for our uniforms. They have one that is specifically for those who were affected by Agent Orange. They give a certificate, and if you want, now this does have a price associated with it, but they have a growing plaque with names of those who were affected by Agent Orange, and whether that person is still living or has passed on. And I definitely recommend that any person or any family member that has had a loved one who was affected by it to do that. Check that out.
And I know that you're on your phone there,
Right.
Dennis, but
There
it looks
it
like
is.
I may have found it in
There it is.
spring.
You know what? That plaque, that's an early picture. That's about four times that size right now.
Here's one that may be a little bit updated.
Right. Yeah, it's they when when they had their latest ceremony this year. I honestly, I wish they would have forecast a little bit better how long it was going to take. They do a reading of every single name that's on that wall, that plaque.
That
And I had to leave after 2.5 hours.
that is scary. The plaque here, I don't know if everybody can see it, but the plaque reads, "In memory of all those who died because of this chemical, and pray for those who are still suffering. Remember our sacrifice, 1962 through eternity." That is a beautiful, beautiful plaque. Once again, this is in Springfield, Tennessee, correct?
Correct.
So it's called the Vietnam Veterans Agent Orange Memorial. Please look it up. It looks like there is a Facebook page that you can go on to. And oh my God, yep, right there. You can see just in the picture, you can see how much bigger it's got. So,
And they're just beginning to just scratch the surface. I forget how many that they said that they were. They estimated it was well over 1 million that they believe were exposed.
you know, Dennis, the one thing that this day is very sombering. I mean, yeah, we want to celebrate the sacrifice. We really do. We want to remember our loved ones that are no longer with us. And this isn't a thing that every person that we're remembering died in battle, because a lot of them didn't.
Right.
But I mean, it's very sombering when you see stuff like this, and what we were talking about on footprints. There are people in the Vietnam War that are suffering so bad that now they're taking their own lives because they're sick. This is what we are trying to stand up to do, to say, you know what, if there's anything that we can do to help keep you around, because we want your stories. Your stories are important to us.
They are, and I think I've told you about the story of my friend in that I know through the cigar lounge in my little town of White House, who was a Vietnam veteran who poo-pooed it. Basically said he had 30 seconds worth of combat, and was safe most all the rest of the time. And once he finally sat down and we had the conversation, and he described what happened, that he was on this rescue flight that found a downed aircraft. He was one of the guys who was on the ground to pick up the pilot and co-pilot. He happened to go get the co-pilot who had a broken leg. She was hauling him over one shoulder, and about 20-30 yards away from him, as he was on his way to the helicopter, popped out of the elephant grass three what he described were kids, but they were all in NVA uniforms. They all had weapons that they were bringing to bear on him, and he shot and killed all three of them. And there were some tears during that description, and some talking about that afterwards. And the next day, he gave me the biggest hug, and he said, "I don't know why it took me so long to agree to sit down and just talk with you, Dennis." He said, "But last night was the first night in over 50 years that I didn't have a nightmare where I saw the faces of those three kids." And to me, that tells me that there can be healing even after 50 years of dealing with nightmares and trauma and the like. So if you're a veteran, a veteran who's dealing with PTSD, there's help available, and talking about it is better than keeping it inside.
And one of the things that I want to, and we say this frequently, but the thing is, it's true. Our dear friend Brian Gibson, I was just on his show helping promote Project Die Hard. But he says, you know what? When you sit down with these veterans, please, you better be ready, because you're going to hear stuff that it's not easy, and it's not pretty. It's not going to be pretty. But Dennis, that's why we always tell people, you know what? Not everybody is the person who can sit there and listen to someone. But
Right.
That's what makes organizations like yours, like Project Die Hard, like Veterans Ranch, like Hero or Veterans Honoring Veterans, all these other wonderful organizations. That's what makes them so important, because you know what? They can be there. You guys are able to speak the same language, okay? Where I'll make a promise to you to never tell you I know what you're feeling, because I don't have a clue what you're feeling. I promise you I will sit here and I'll listen to every word you've got to say. Okay? But if you need somebody to talk back and understand what you're saying, organizations like yours, this is what makes it so important. And if you've got this problem, I'll guarantee you Dennis is going to talk to you. And you see his number right there on your screen. That's what the Price of Freedom Foundation is. The Price of Freedom Foundation.org. Okay? Telling stories of those we've lost. But you know what? I'll guarantee you that Dennis would rather tell your story and still have you here.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm not about replicating and duplicating what other people do and do better than me. And so, we'll have a conversation. I'd be happy to have a conversation. And if you've got you don't have the resources to get it done, then I'll absolutely work with you all on that. We're still a small enough, young enough organization that we can flex, and the whole point of it is to serve, and to serve our veterans and those who've served and who've paid a huge price in that service for all of us.
And here at Community Pay It Forward, contact us. Maybe we can help you to raise the money that is needed to get this done. This is the reason why this is so important, okay? You shop with our partners. They give us a referral, and we're going to give the referral to Dennis. That referral could be through you to help get your loved one's story told, or your story told even.
Right.
Look, we are here to try to help. That's it. Dennis is sitting right now in a cemetery trying to tell stories, because these stories, those are stories that cannot be told again. The stories that are in the ground.
Right.
Let's tell the stories before they're gone. I think
that's always best. Yes, it is. But there's still what I'm focused on through what the families that we're serving, the Gold Star families that we're serving currently, is to contact as many people who are still with us, and collect those stories. And what we, I kind of had a clue about it, but what I really discovered is that in collecting these stories, we're actually helping every single person along the way, because nobody except the fallen has the complete story. Nobody. And so if we are talking to a living veteran, you are the only one who has your complete story. Please do a favor to those who love you and tell your story, so that it doesn't disappear into the dustbin of history with you. People always, at some point in their life, are going to want to know, what did my uncle, what did my grandfather do? What did my dad do? And it's usually not when we're kids. It's usually once we're in our 20s or 30s that we start asking those kind of questions. And if we're no longer around and we haven't taken the time to tell that story, then they're just kind of at a loss, and they're going to have to go through different things to try and piece it together. And let's my appeal is, don't make them do that. Do it now.
Well, Dennis, I want to thank you. And you know what? You're the one who made the steps to go out there and host this memorial. So please, you take the closing moments and talk to everybody about close this out, and
Sure.
we'll let you get on the way.
Sure. Well, there's been plenty of speeches made on Memorial Days, and I wish I could remember some of the more eloquent ones, but I can't. What I will say is this. Please remember that Memorial Day is about the fallen. Please remember that there are families, there are Gold Star families who mourn every day, every day, but especially every Memorial Day. We visit grave sites and have conversations, pay tribute, cry, celebrate, smoke a cigar, have a drink, or whatever it is to honor their loved one. Remember that is the reason for Memorial Day. And if you know a Gold Star family, go out and let them know that you care. Let them know that you want to know about their grief and how you can help them. And thank you for those that are watching, for your support and your service. And God bless you all.
Thank you, Dennis, for doing this. And you have yourself a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Please, if you have a story to tell, the QR code right on top of my head. It's the best way to do it. You can join Dennis and myself as we just try to help people move away from the ledge. But I love your ending. Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye now.